Back to it now here again, live from the United Center in Chicago. Yes, I've gone into the belly of the beast here, the Democratic National Convention. Look, we have to get to a point to understand that today's Democrat Party is nothing like Democrats when you're growing up. This is not your parents' Democrat Party. This is not JFK. This isn't Bill Clinton. Might be Barack Obama, but it's not Bill Clinton. It's not JFK. It's not people that you grew up with or were familiar with. Join me now, Pete Hoekstra. Former ambassador to the Netherlands and the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, and it was served in Congress for 18 years. Pete, good to have you back, of course. Nice to see you, my friend.
Always good to be with you, Steve.
All right, so we were talking in the break, who's winning? And you said, I think we are. I mean, there was a time there, Kamala, it's been 29 days. She hasn't spoken to the press at all, except for a question, barely in passing here and there. Other than that, she is not taking questions, not doing interviews. They can do that for so long, but it's not going to hold. I think she's going to give the shortest acceptance speech of all time because she has no specifics. And as you might have heard me say here in the break, the Washington Post, the editorial board referring to her economic policies as nothing more than populist gimmicks. They're not taking her seriously at all, even at the Washington Post right now. That's not good news, Pete.
It's not good news for the Democrats. It's not good news for America. I mean, it'd be one thing if she were putting forward solid policy proposals, but there are not any solid policy proposals coming out of Kamala. She has, she's wasted the last 29 days, the first 29 days of her ascendancy as the Democratic nominee, comes out with a bunch of policy proposals that will increase American costs or are things that she could have done right now. I'm going to secure the border. You could do that right now if you've got a plan. We could fix wages and prices. We could lock in, wages and prices. You could have done that 4 years ago and you would have saved Americans 20% on inflation. In Michigan, Steve, we ought to.
Wait a second. Secure wages and prices. Hold on here, because this is part that it makes me very frightened, Pete. Because basically, what they're saying on the Democrat side of it is that they're going to tell people how much they should get paid. So they're going to tell the company how much an employee has to be paid, right? Minimum wage and paid time off and all these things. And at the same time, they're going to say, this is the baker. And the baker's got his company. And here's what you have to pay your employee at the bakery. You have to be paid this, and they get these benefits and this time off. Oh, and by the way, you can only sell your loaf of bread for this much. So they're going to tell the company what they have to pay their employees and how they have to benefit them. And then they're going to tell them how much they can sell their loaf of bread. That doesn't work, Pete. That creates bread lines. That creates a Soviet-style central planning disaster, doesn't it?
It really does. We tried it. We tried it under a Republican president back in the 1970s, and it was a total abysmal failure. It does not work. And again, she says, I want to pass this legislation to freeze or control wages and prices, but so we can find those corporate companies that are gouging, or actually she says gauging, which I have no idea what that means. But she says, but it's supposed to be gouging American consumers. They don't define what gouging is, but they're saying we want to provide all of this power to, I think it's the Federal Trade Commission, so that they can go in and investigate companies and identify what gouging is, if gouging is taking place. Well, that's going to make things cheaper for us, having every single company now worried about a raid by the Federal Trade Commission after the IRS comes in, after OSHA comes in, and those types of things, and then promising all kinds of handouts. Hey, $25,000 if you want to buy your first home. I think they tried that with student loans about 40 years ago. What happened to the cost of education? Skyrocketed. You subsidize something, the prices are going to go up. They are not going to stabilize or go down. And it's amazing. I mean, not only was it the Washington Post, there were people all across the left who were, I think, sincerely disappointed. They were hoping that they could write a glowing statement about her economic proposals and the potential of the future of America. But it was a disastrous rollout.
Yeah, the plan is a Soviet style, or as Donald Trump calls it, the Maduro plan, Venezuelan plan. People don't realize. Talking to my children, they don't realize that 25 years ago, Venezuela was one of the 5 wealthiest countries in the world. Right? They don't even realize that because they've never heard of it, such a thing. And it was a prosperous country where these sorts of policies were brought in. Oh, everything's going to be free and it's going to be happy and flowers and rainbows. And what did we get? We got socialist utopia, which is a disaster, right?
Yep. The one thing propping up Venezuela today is what? The United States of America. Rather than providing American jobs to American workers by producing energy in America, the Biden-Harris administration made the brilliant decision that said, let's buy dirty Venezuelan oil that is kind of like mud, rather than the good, clean, pure stuff coming out of the United States of America. It's one disaster after another. And Steve, we're checking on it this weekend or this week. We'll do it today. I'll get back to you. But, we've seen gas prices come down in Michigan. You know why?
Why?
I believe that the EPA granted a waiver to Michigan and a few other states that says you can start processing winter blend right now. Winter blend, which the EPA says is more polluting, but also more expensive. You can start processing, winter blend and burning winter blend fuel right now. The question is, if it's a good idea now, why wasn't it a good idea for the last 3.5 years? This is what you always come back to with Kamala. These are such great ideas. Why haven't we been doing this to help the American people for the last 3.5 years? Why are you coming up with these ideas and in some cases implementing them, weeks before an election? It's absolutely manipulation. It's not sound economic policy, and it tells you the shallowness of the Democrat agenda.
Yeah, no question, Pete. And you wonder, gas is down to $3.41. Now, in fairness, when Joe Biden took office, gas was $2.25 near my house. Yeah. In some places around the country, it was less than $2 a gallon. The interest rates on the 30-year fixed mortgage were 2.25% you could get back then, easily under 3%. Now they're double that, of course, or more, depending on what your score is.